Okay, can you hear me? I think yes, perfect. Thank you so much for the introductory words. I'm really excited to be here at the Center for Digital Culture here in Mexico City. Thank you so much for hosting this, and thank you for coming here. I think we're going to have a good time. This presentation is going to be a little bit technical in parts. This is kind of unavoidable. I promise you I will not bore you with too much technology, but I think a little bit is necessary to understand what I've done and what the next steps are. Every time I visit Mexico City, I always remember how lucky I am to be able to be in a city where I can just speak to anyone and they will have an understanding of what Tenochtitlan is, at least a basic understanding. Because outside of Mexico, this understanding is really kind of close to zero, maybe. So I'll start with the obvious. A city built in the center of a lake, somewhere in the 1320s, we think, which bloomed, which blossomed into an enormous metropolis within only 200 years, which for a city this size and complexity is an incredibly short amount of time. The city, as it was in the 1500s, was one of worldly importance, right? It was one of the biggest cities, not just of the indigenous Americans, but of the entire world. And I think that is worth mentioning, in my case, to everyone that I can mention it to. Right, this is the capital of my home country, Amsterdam. At around 1500s, it's a tiny village compared to Tenochtitlan. So I think this justifies the worldly importance of the city of Tenochtitlan. And so when I first learned about it, which is surprisingly quite recently, my own imagination kind of failed me, because when you look at other ruins of other cities like Teotihuacan or whatever, you can kind of see the images and kind of let your imagination do its thing. But with Tenochtitlan, Mexico City is built over top of it. Mexico City is a cosmopolitan metropolis sprawling with over 20 million people. For me, it was impossible to kind of rhyme that image of this giant floating aquatic green city in a lake versus this giant modern, mostly built according to European architecture metropolis that it is today. So, I thought, as a technical artist, I'm somewhat of an artist. I'm somewhat of a programmer. Sometimes I'm kind of both of them. Sometimes I'm neither of them. I thought maybe I can be the one to create these images. I have the time. It was a pandemic at the time. I have the interest. How long can this take? 2 months? 3 months? Maybe at most, right? A couple of weekends, and there should be at least some image. That's not the case. It took 1.5 years, but I had a great time in the meantime. Tenochtitlan has become kind of a mythical city, in my opinion. When you look online, it might feature in lists similar to something like Atlantis, right? Something that a lot of people have built their collective imagination on top, but something which at the same time really did exist. And we have all of these sources that tell us how it was and what it looked like. This is part of the Mapa de Uppsala. This is one of the most important maps that we have of the city. It can be a little bit chaotic when you see it like this. If I draw some lines over top of it, you can see what the city would have looked like. Here we see the same lines that I've drawn over top of the Mapa de Uppsala. I've drawn them over top of a modern street layout of Mexico City. This gives us a very good first start of starting to map out the city as it was back then. We have closer details. This is the Plano en Papel de Maguey. This shows us a super ordered, super functional city with alternating streets and alternating canals and chinampas and all of these different things that weave together the city as a whole. These two sources that we have here, if we combine them, we can get a basic idea of what the city would have looked like. You can go to Xochimilco, see what it looks like today, extrapolate from there, apply the knowledge that we have of how Xochimilco, for example, transformed from its pre-Hispanic origins to today. You bring that all together, you get something which is, I think, should be relatively close to what it could have looked like 500 years ago. But there's also things that require a lot more artist interpretation. For example, there's no debate about where Templo Mayor was. You can go today, you can go to the, right by the Zocalo and see the ruins for yourself. But they are just the foundations. They only tell you about the size and its development, which is really interesting. But it's insufficient for you to visualize in your head what it would have looked like. We have other sources which describe us what this temple might have looked like. These are certainly not all of them. Some of these might not actually be of Tenochtitlan. We think this one is from Texcoco, for example. But it gives us a sort of idea, sort of visual language of what the temple could have looked like. And then I think it is up to the artist, the role of the artist, to interpret these sources and come to a visualization of what, in this case, Templo Mayor might have looked like. On the left, we see a very simple and austere interpretation, mostly white, simple temples on top. On the right, we have a completely outlandish one. There's no evidence at all for this amount of pigment, but the one on the left, I think, is equally unlikely as the one on the right. And the reality is probably somewhere in between, right? And it is up to the artist to kind of freely interpret and experiment and ask questions about what the city could have looked like, what the architecture could have looked like. This is just one of many possible interpretations, but I think it's important that artists get the space and the information and the freedom to explore things like this. Especially in the early process of the city, I was very lucky to be able to talk to various academics and fellow artists who, despite the project looking like, kind of garbage, that they were willing to talk to me and provide information that I, as a single internet browser guy, could not have, come across themselves. And this is building on top of all of the academic research that has come before us for decades. So, my entire project stands on the shoulders of so many people that collaborated in this way. That gives you a basic idea of what's required to do the research to do a project like this. But then you have to, also work it out. You have to make it. For this, I opened up my computer. I installed the program Blender. This is a little bit of my Dutch Netherlands pride, because this is a Dutch project. It's born in Amsterdam. It's free and open source software which allows anyone without restrictions to develop anything they want in 3D. And it's incredibly potent. You can open it and you can really create whatever you want. But the challenge with this project was its enormous size. To start, the entire Basin of Mexico area that I wanted to represent was almost the size of my entire country. So that already kind of created some technical challenges. For some of these things, you have to build the tools yourself, and luckily Blender allows you to do this. You can dive in and you can start developing. You can use the view or the knowledge of a software developer, of a programmer, and you can apply it in an artistic way. For example, here's just one example. What if I wanted to distribute an entire forest across an entire terrain? That's not something that you can just do, you have to develop it. One example of the things that you can do. The city is incredibly big, there's many buildings. I cannot be the one kind of building every building by himself. And so I've built systems that allow me to very basically describe simple shapes, simple cubes, simple staircases, and then turn them into complete buildings, in this case palaces. Here you can see, it might not be super well visible, but here's a super simple representation. And here's kind of the end result with materials, with little trees, little colors on the outside of the building. All of these things together combine to make the palace look like a coherent whole. The chinampas, of course, the entire city is built out of with building blocks that are the chinampas, right? The entire city was built by hand from the lake, and so it was super crucial to have a system that I did not have to draw every little chinampa by hand, because first of all, that would take a very long time, and second of all, I would not be flexible enough in the future. So this is the input. I create little squares, which don't look like anything, and then the outcome is complete with with farmland, with Chinampa farmland, with trees, with buildings where the city is a bit more urban, and no buildings where the city is a little bit less urban. These different systems can be combined. Here I have, for example, a set of rules, if you will, a sort of programming language that takes as an input simple shapes and output entire villages with houses, with trees, etc. In the middle, we have something that is a little bit more rural, a bit more agricultural, so there are some buildings, but there's also some farmland. On the right, we have a landscape that looks a lot more like Xochimilco, and I was able to just kind of distribute this across my city and adjust whenever needed. You know, with this being the input, yellow being kind of urban, orange being medium urban, and pink being not urban at all. And even though there's a lot of trickery going on, the end result is kind of a nice, coherent total. And I think even though there's all these little hacks in there that kind of allow me to cheat how things flow together, etc., if you take a view that is kind of far away, you don't see that. You just see Tenochtitlan. And I think developing these tools in Blender is what allowed me to create a project like this in the first place. Here you can kind of zoom in how all of these little systems come together, and here is what it looks like when it's all put together. At some point, I decided that it was enough. I put a lot of time and effort into developing this, and I was sufficiently happy with what the city looked like, and I put it online on a little website, and I thought that, maybe a few academics might be interested, maybe some kind of history nerds might enjoy it. I did not expect like Mexican national television. That was a bit of a surprise to me, but it was a lot of fun. And I think a lot of the success of this project is in large part due to Creative Commons. Creative Commons, it kind of rolls off the tongue like that, but what it means is creative, which are works of art or works of design or however you want to translate that, and commons, which means things that belong to everyone. So for me, it was very important that it doesn't only belong to me, it belongs to whoever wants to have it, who wants to use it, who wants to utilize it for whatever need that they have, under the restriction that I am kind of mentioned somewhere in the small text. That was enough for me. This can lead you to all sorts of places. It's a little bit strange because you never know what's going to happen. It could be a tour guide in Templo Mayor using your images to show what the city would have looked like. It could be a Hungarian magazine. I didn't know this magazine exists, and I just saw like an image pop up, and they just put it on the front of their thing. That's allowed. That's kind of weird, but it's allowed. Using it for promotion for the 700-year anniversary book sale at Gandhi, that's also allowed. I think it's a lot of fun when people use it like that. You really you never know what people do with it. Of course, it feels a little bit strange as an artist because it's kind of like your baby and people are just kind of running around with it. But I think it's more important that people use it than that I'm like, it's my thing and you have to, I don't know, pay me or something to view it. That's not important to me at all. But here's 2025. When I started, I think end of 2022, a lot of things have changed. This is what AI image generation looked like when I was starting. Small images, you could type in like Tenochtitlan, canals, boats, pyramids, whatever, and some images would come out. And they're not very good, but you can see them and think, there's like potential in some of this technology. Let's see what happens. And a lot of people thought that, a lot of time and money has gone into this technology, and this is what we have now. Now, all of these images are really pretty good, right? If I wanted to create an image like this in Blender, that would take me a lot of time. But what is going on here? Here we have people in a Chinampa with like Egyptian pyramids. This is like a Southeast Asian city with a highway and some sort of Mayan ruin in the middle. And I guess this kind of looks like Teotihuacan in a way, but with like a Parisian style bridge. I don't know what's going on here. Why does it look like this? Why did we go from here to here? Why did the images become more beautiful, but why did the content stay so bad? For me, content-wise, this image and this image is the same. That's because AI cannot generate new work. It can only kind of interpret from whatever it has been trained on. So on the left, if I Google Tenochtitlan, what do we have? We have the ziggurat of Ur in the Near East. We have a fairly nice but outdated image of Tenochtitlan. We have Machu Picchu. We have Teotihuacan. And all of this is just kind of goes into this black box, and what comes out is some sort of image that looks very pleasant, but has nothing to do with Tenochtitlan. And I'm sure that tomorrow, the images are going to be a lot nicer looking. Maybe there's going to be video, etc., etc. But, you know, it's going to be a very nice video of whatever this is, and not what Tenochtitlan is. Right? If you want to make new work, if you want to make work that does not exist yet, you cannot rely on artificial intelligence, because it can only reproduce that which has been put in. If I want to create this image, I can. If I want to create my image, I cannot do that, because this is new work. You know, and kind of besides the ethical concerns about plagiarism, etc., I think there's a bigger concern of just what is coming out of these things. It kind of sucks, and all of the internet is being flooded with it. Yeah, I don't know what I think. I still need some time to think about this, but it's not great. It's not very beautiful. And obviously the role of the artist is to take something that is complicated, that is kind of academic knowledge, or that is you know, hidden away in papers and archaeology and maps, etc., and show it to a general audience. But there's a so much bigger role, right? As an artist, you ask questions, you create work that themselves raise questions. You have to build on work and ask questions to that work which nobody might have asked before. And there might be academics who come to you and ask you things. Who are like, hey, how did you interpret this and why? So I think, you know, artists play a very important role within the entire ecosystem of academia, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that. But I think it's really important, and I think having this part replaced by AI is kind of breaking a very important chain that we need to preserve, and that is kind of fragile. For me, the most fun in this project was when I was kind of almost done, when I was almost complete with the project, because then I could go in as a photographer, kind of fly around the city, experience it in different times of day, weather. I could take views from certain regions and think, oh, if I stand here and look towards the temple, is then the mountain visible, etc. These sort of questions you can kind of dynamically ask when you have your scene like this. And I would love to share that with people, because because it's fun. That would be the first reason to share it. And because I think being able to fly around like this allows you to ask questions within this world. But there's a problem. Generating an image like this takes about 30 minutes, right? It goes from an image that looks like this, to like this, to like this. You know, if you have a sufficiently powerful computer, and I know that a lot of people in the audience probably don't have that. So for me, just releasing these files would be insufficient, because first you can only reach people who have an incredibly good computer and who have the technical knowledge to open a file like this and experiment with it. So just releasing these files I felt like would kind of not result in anything. So then I thought, what if I could I have this on my computer. It's not my computer, it's from Google, doesn't matter. What if I could put it into my phone? That would be kind of cool, right? In order to do that, I need to go from 30 minutes to 16 milliseconds, which is about 100,000 times faster, and also on a phone instead of a computer. Incremental changes are not going to get you there, so I had to think of a fundamentally different way of presenting it. And I thought, we are here. I thought if Google can capture the entire Earth, I can probably capture Tenochtitlan, right? That should be doable. So that's what I tried to do. And in order to understand the problem, why the images take so incredibly long and why it takes such an incredibly powerful computer to be even able to open these files, is we need to understand what's going on inside a file like this. We have a lot of complexity, and this complexity stacks. We have all the geometry, as we call it, just like in mathematics, which explain the shape and size of different objects. We have materials, one for every sort of reason that you can imagine. We have buildings, we have floors, we have nature, we have water, all of these different things come together. And every one of these little ingredients, they add a little bit of complexity. There should be a way to take all of that complexity and just kind of like smash it into one flat thing. That should be possible. When you go to a museum and you see in front of you a statue, you can capture that statue using your phone. You can capture it in 3D. This technology should be applicable here within my scene as well. And that would kind of solve the issue if I can make that work. So what do we have? We have a view. This is like a camera looking at it like this. And we have what we call an image that represents the depth. We have some sort of information about where things are in the room. Combine these things together and you get something that looks a lot like a LiDAR scan. If you work in archaeology, this image should be kind of familiar to you because this is how you scan temples and archaeological sites. Using this technology, but virtually instead of in the real world, we can turn this back into some sort of geometry. But now all of the complexity that was there in the first place has been removed, and now it's just one kind of simple thing. Well, simple, relatively simple. We can apply the color back onto it, and now we have whatever we had before, but it's kind of easy. Anyone can view this. I'm presenting this as kind of like a 1, 2, 3 step. It was not like this. It was like months of R&D and trying different combinations of technology and thinking about, you know, what fits on a phone and what doesn't, and making calculations and predictions. There's a lot of big files and scripting and obscure stuff going on, but it doesn't matter. In the end, I got into a framework which allowed me to do that. We just took a look at this little area. The city is much bigger, so I just divided the city up into 18 little pieces, and for each of these pieces I gave it the same treatment. There we go. This is not very interesting, maybe if you want to take a picture if you're into technology, but we can throw this into software which it can run in the browser. That's a good start. Doesn't look like being in the basin of Mexico just yet. What do we need? We need lighting, of course. We need to take the sun into account and its shadows. An atmosphere, we need to kind of feel the air around us. Water, you know, kind of an unfamiliar topic now in Mexico City, but there used to be a big lake here. That needs to be represented. And, you know, putting that all together, you develop this, you program that, brings you to an end result. And I think now it's time to kill the lights, and I'll show you what it looks like. So here it is. This is a website. I hope the Wi-Fi here allows me to click on Explore. I think it will. As the previous website, it's available, of course, in Spanish and Nahuatl. Thanks to Rodrigo for translating all of these things. Let's click Explore. Let's hope that this, first of all, works and doesn't take too long. It works. Ooh. There it is. So these are the images that you're kind of used to from the website. But what I can do is rotate. Here we're exploring the Recinto Sagrado. And over here is Tlatelolco, way out there in the distance. What I can do is take the time of day, the sun, and view the city as it changes throughout the year. We can view the path of the sun going up over the city and descending on the other side. We can change the date like this. And we can go into night view, which shows the temples lit up and the various calpuli doing their thing. Let's go back to daytime. You know, sometimes I get criticized for making things too orange, like a Mexican filter. But I just think it looks nice, okay? Let's enable some labels. Let's take a look at the historic toponyms. Here we have Tenochtitlan, Tlacopan, Azcapotzalco, Tlatelolco, Teneyocan. On the other side of the lake, Texcoco. Down here, Xochimilco, Coyoacan. We can enable a modern overview, which shows you the extent of the modern metro network. as well as some interesting things like the Autodromo, the Aeropuerto is over here, the Anahuacalli, the Seu. What else do we have? We should be kind of closer here to the castle of Chapultepec, nicely situated on the solid ground here. And we can look at the geographic toponyms, which show you the names of the mountains. I don't know how well readable it is here, but we see both the modern toponym as well as the Nahuatl toponym, which is below. So, for example, we have Monte Tlaloc, which would be Tlaloc Tepetl. That one is kind of speaks for itself, but some of these are a bit more complicated. Iztaccíhuatl, Popocatépetl. Let's turn them off for now. Again, we can change languages if we want. We have some advanced controls, for the nerds among us. We can change the fog density. This is what it looks like when it's very smoggy in the city. And you can make the skies really clear. You can change the field of view to get a more overview. I should really put this thing away, like this. Maybe. And we can change the exposure, like a camera. You can share it if you think, oh, this view is nice. Copy this, send it to a friend. I would appreciate it. And you can take a screenshot and you can share that online if you want. And I think that's about it. That's what we can do in this viewer right here. Let's go back to the presentation. So, of course, in developing this viewer, I had to make some concessions because I cannot fit the entire reconstruction onto your phone. I have to make things a little bit uglier. I'm sorry. It doesn't look very good. I'm not going to release original files for two reasons. First of all, I don't want my reconstruction to become the de facto reconstruction because it's just one of them and I want other people to try it as well. And the second reason is the technical reason, that it just doesn't fit on your phone. So, there you go. If you want to, you can download the project. It's kind of what you see on the web viewer, but in Blender, you can go in. If you disagree with any item in my reconstruction, cut it out and do it yourself. I would really, really love that. Maybe you have a completely different view of the city. Maybe you think it was more urban. Maybe you think it was more rural. Give it a try. Open the files, see what happens. If you want to create Xochimilco, go across the lake there and do your thing. I'm absolutely open to it. Even the website itself, you can, if you hit Control-S, you can just, you can save it and kind of explore its inner workings. If you want to make a reconstruction of, I don't know, Teotihuacan and use this website as a basis to view it, you can, and please do, I would love it. And I think that's about it. Of course, the link, I will reveal it once the questions are done because I don't want you all on your phone while people are asking questions. Yeah, thank you so much.
Importante, sigan su nueva página, platiquen de este proyecto, compártanlo, se ve increíble. Y los invitamos a acompañarnos a la planta de arriba por algo de tomar, algo de comer y pues platicar con el creador de este gran proyecto. Gracias a todos, todas y todes por acompañarnos.